And we're live again with Newsmakers. Hey, look at the Tower Theater back there. It's there today, it's there tomorrow. It'll be there in 20 years, it'll be there in 50 years. By the way, our office here at Mike Briggs Properties building, get a little plug in for Mike Briggs Properties. We had our 100th birthday for the building the other day, right here at Van Ness and Olive. If you drive by, honk. No, don't honk. We're always in live shows and people are always honking. Our next guest comes from Southern California, Karen Roseberry. I got it right.
You did.
We
Thank you,
rehearsed
Mike.
it 20 times. Karen Roseberry. And tell us, the DA in LA County is who?
George Gascon.
Yeah.
And
we don't hear much about him.
Right.
Didn't hear about his election, his campaign, or anything.
Well, I will say your district attorney, Lisa Smitkamp, has actually been vocal about the effort that I'm here to represent today.
Recalling. They're going to recall this. Let's
Correct.
just get a little background. Wasn't he just elected a few months ago?
November election, he was elected. He took office on December the 7th, and the first day that he took office, he began issuing a series of directives that truly endangered the residents of Los Angeles County.
So November, the same time the presidential election was.
All the same election.
He's like around the 6th, 7th, whatever it was, and less than a month later, he's already the DA. They switched that fast. Huh?
Correct. Most of the state offices and the local county offices in California generally will take office at the federal wait until the January timeframe.
Now let me, just before we get on this guy too soon, what did he run on? What was he saying he's going to do? Now they displaced a pretty good DA, right? Or
So he ran against Jackie Lacey, who'd been in office, I believe it was 8 years prior to that, if I'm not mistaken. And yes, I mean, she'd been, doing the job. She was actually, making sure that LA County was having their laws enforced. She was holding accountable.
Number one job, I would think, for a DA.
You would think.
Enforce the law. Make sure the laws are enforced.
Although that's actually part of the reason why I'm here is because so Gascon ran on a reform-based platform, but nothing in what he ran on said that he was no longer going to enforce the law, which is exactly what you're describing. First day in office, he issues a series of directives that include no longer prosecuting a rather lengthy laundry list of misdemeanor crimes. We have a serious problem with out-of-control elected officials. And so there's pushback by those who are proponents of his, saying, well, he's, the duly elected officer and that, you can't, challenge an election. Well, first of all, yes, in our country you can. There are recall efforts that are perfectly democratic. And second of all, just because you're elected to the office of district attorney does not make you king to be able to ignore laws that have been passed by our state legislature, laws that have been passed by voters. You don't get to ignore, dismiss, and disregard the law simply because you win an election.
Nobody has that power. Now, I'm going to keep pulling you back to the beginning.
Sure.
First day, he says, okay, we're not going to enforce all these laws.
Right.
And it was just a matter of days before people started saying, hey, this guy's got to go.
Pretty much.
And who was saying he's got to go?
So there are a number of individuals that are involved in this. There was, kind of a period of time to, let him kind of get his feet under him to a small degree before it completely.
Little honeymoon period.
Well, not exactly. I mean, the recall effort pretty much started as soon as possible after that. In Los Angeles County, an official must be in office 90 days before official proceedings against the individual can commence.
But they didn't wait 90 days. I mean, they said just a few days after, he said, people are saying this guy's.
Well, okay, so he issues his directives. People see them as being a threat to law and order, being a threat to public safety, actually disregarding the very same election in which he was elected. Same election, same county, people voted to reinstate cash bail. Prop 25. In fact, actually, I would say throughout, this portion of the state as well, it was, popular. Again, passes statewide, and in Los Angeles County, it passed by 9% of the vote, whereas Gascon only wins by 7%. So more people in Los Angeles County wanted to restrict what he was defining as reform and did so with their vote. He disregarded that and has, abolished cash bail. So the 90-day period has to proceed before he can be served his notice of intent. He was served that, and now it's a matter of getting the petition for recall approved by the county.
Yeah, and we're going to get to all that, I promise. I'm just going to pump you for info, because we're in Fresno. We just haven't heard that much about this.
I understand.
Now, when he said he abolished cash bail, that means you don't need cash to get out? You just get out?
It means that, yes, you will be, with a small exception of very high-level crimes, yes, you are released without having to pay a cash bail, without there being any necessary component to compel your return to court. And we're already seeing cases. In fact, last night in Covina, the city council voted a no confidence vote. They're the 7th city to do so against Gascon. And the law enforcement officer representing the city and providing information spoke about a case where they had an individual who'd been released without any bail, only to later on repeat and again be caught again in the commission of another crime.
Now, in these no cash bail instances, are they just citing him in the spot and letting him go, or they're driving him down to the jail, processing them through, then letting him go?
Right. A citation is issued. I think it depends on the actual case as to how far into the booking process it actually goes. I know in some cases it's a citation. I do believe in other cases there is a more formal booking that goes on, but I think that there's a lot of them where it's pretty much kind of a cite and release that's
Well, here's
happening.
I'm thinking a guy needs a car, so he's stealing it. I'm going to steal his car. Cop comes up, gets caught, and says, hey, you can't do that. I'm going to cite you, and, don't steal a car. And the cops are overworked. They have too much to do, and they're put in danger all the time. And each time they encounter another person, there's another danger. And so, they don't want to take 2 hours out to drive. It takes a long time to process someone into the jailhouse. So cites the guy, lets him go. The guy still needs a car. What's he going to do? When he knows the consequence
Very
is
good.
not going to jail.
That is actually an excellent point that is raised, and in fact, it's actually why we've become almost a social experiment. And in fact, this is actually starting to garner some national coverage, because this is emerging in other cities as well as to how do we deal with our crime issues, and whether or not these modern-based theories actually have a effective, pragmatic implementation, and really we're seeing that they're not. Despite this attempt to sort of twist and manipulate data, when we look at when crime was actually prosecuted in the 90s versus when we saw that the lesser sentencing emerge around kind of the 2011 2012 timeframe, we actually see that there's been a spike in violent crimes, and it's actually on the Department of Justice website where you can find the data for that. Michael Rushford from the Criminal Justice Legal Foundation put out a great press release that basically cited those very statistics from the Department of Justice as well. And you can find that actually on our website, so you can check that out.
Now, I want to go back to, so he's elected, the next day he says, I'm not going to prosecute these laws. Can you tell us some of those?
Absolutely. In fact, one of them I actually wanted to highlight after you were mentioning about the difficulty law enforcement has. One of them is resisting arrest. So not only are our law enforcement overworked and put into jeopardy, but now when they actually face criminals that may resist arrest, that's not even going to be a crime that is prosecuted by the district attorney's office.
So why not resist? Why not try to get away? Why not get a fair break and see if you could run faster than the cop?
Unless there is assault, like I say, but exactly, that is precisely the point. Why wouldn't they when there's no consequence for actions?
What are
Trespassing, prostitution, drug paraphernalia. Like I say, the ones that concern me probably the most in the list have to do with trespassing, because we see that there's a very lengthy correlation many times with breaking and entering that goes along with that, with vandalism, with just the fact that one's property rights are not protected, in that respect. And we're also seeing the fact that when the LA Sheriff's Department has their hands tied on prostitution, it essentially legalizes it, but it also puts at much greater risk those that are trapped in sex trafficking rings that are usually able to, to find a way of escape when the LA Sheriff's Department can come in and actually
Remove
help.
them from their situation. Take them to jail or whatever. Get them out of their situation. Yeah.
Exactly, get them out of that situation. And that's why we actually have seen Sheriff Villanueva, the Los Angeles County Sheriff, come out and say that he can't work with DA Gascon. He, is very concerned about the fact that there are laws that need to be enforced, that are supposed to be enforced, and that his deputies are still enforcing, and that are not being prosecuted, which, again, essentially legalizes these aspects.
Now, what I notice is there's a lot of people who push to the highest place they can get without getting in too much trouble. So it used to be down here, oh, you can't do this, you're going to get in jail. They've moved it way up here. So they're just going to keep doing more and more and more till they see how far they can go.
You're exactly right. Wherever the line is, someone is always going to cross over that line. And so when we continue to move the line further and further out, then where they're going to cross over becomes more and more dangerous.
You know why I don't speed? because I'm afraid I'm going to get caught. Why don't rob a bank? I'll go to prison. I don't know. I probably wouldn't rob a bank, but we all try to play it on the edge a little bit, and we're actually telling people when they say we're not going to prosecute this law, that means there is no law. That means it's okay to do that.
And even further still is the fact that once one is convicted, there is a question over the sentences that are being issued as well. DA Gascon has actually prevented now to have deputy district attorneys attend parole hearings. He's actually encouraged motions for the release of criminals if they've served 15 years in jail, regardless, or 15 years in state prison, regardless of what the crime that they committed, regardless of special circumstances, regardless of how heinous it was. So exactly that. We're seeing that there is not a true consequence for one's actions. And we're seeing one individual who is essentially trying to rewrite the laws in a very unilateral, and I would even argue rather authoritarian manner. When, like I say, you're elected as the district attorney, that means you're supposed to prosecute the offenders. Watch the first 5 minutes of Law and Order. And when you're rewriting the law and when you're choosing not to prosecute law, that goes far, far beyond any scope under which you were elected, and it must be stopped.
By the way, most people who break a law the first time, trespassing or whatever, even prostitution, you don't go to jail the first time. But these laws are set up to get people that are doing them over and over and over. These are habitual offenders. These are the people that are going to hurt us. And that's one reason we have that system. If you can't stop, if you can't help yourself, well, you need to be taken out of society. And when you say, no, we're not even going to prosecute any of those, it's walking down, it's a very slippery slope there.
Exactly. Again, there is a justice system that is in place. There's a legislature that's in place. And both of those are avenues and areas in which if there needs to be, sentencing reform, if there needs to be, judicial reform, like you say, there are separate branches of government to address many of those same issues, but it is not the job of the district attorney to unilaterally take that upon himself.
And I would say, thinking back to my 8th grade civics class, the district attorney enforces the law. He doesn't make them or interpret them. That's the judges that interpret them. So, interesting. Now,
I like your 8th grade civics teacher. We should have a little more of that. I wish a few more elected officials understood it.
I have a Ring doorbell. Films people come up to my door, everybody, and all the Ring people, you're in a club or something, you're sharing your doorbell footage all the time. There's people walking through our yards and our backyards all night long, trespassing. And could you imagine? It's your private property. That's your sanctuary. And now they're saying in L.A., just go ahead, do it. Walk around the backyard, maybe pick up a couple things that's small, their garden hose or beautiful plant they have in the backyard or whatever. There's nothing going to happen to them.
Pretty much. And in fact, we've already seen that petty theft is almost not prosecuted either. You have to actually reach a threshold of almost, not quite, it's a smidge under, but almost $1,000 in theft before, and that's actually statewide as well. But interestingly enough, DA Gascon was actually instrumental in, pushing those same propositions forward that we've seen fail time and time again, and we've seen spikes in crime. And there's this debate that's ensuing over, well, if it's not prosecuted, well, maybe it wasn't really a crime to begin with, or it doesn't get reported that way, yet the crime is still being committed, even if the reporting of it hits in a very different level or mechanism.
Now, so people from Fresno, we're actually the whole valley. We have viewers from Modesto, Sacramento, all the way down past Bakersfield. They're watching. They're probably aghast right now. Like, I can't believe this. We got to do something about it. Well, you are doing something.
Absolutely. And I would add, for the Bakersfield folks, if they're in Kern County, Cynthia Zimmer, DA there, has also spoken out in regards to these concerns. And we're seeing that more and more. And in fact, we actually have there's a recall if you're north and closer to the Bay Area, Chesa Boudin is coming under a recall and is actually very close to the required number of signatures for that too.
And is that a DA?
DA of San Francisco.
Yeah. And of course, let's say this. Let's just jump right into it. The governor, Gavin Newsom, is being... They got the petition approved. It's going to go on the ballot. I don't remember the process. Even though we did it a few years ago, we recalled a governor. And it's not easy. I think this recall Newsom, they tried it 2 or 3 times, you know, and all that work gets thrown out and you start over again. It's not easy to do a recall.
Right, and in Los Angeles County, it's even more challenging because it requires 10% the number of registered voters of the county, not even just the number of voters who voted in the last election,
Wow.
As in the gubernatorial recall. So we will need to collect approximately 582,000
My goodness.
valid signatures, which in a county as dynamic as Los Angeles, with people moving, you know, in and out, addresses changing, sometimes difficult to, you know, match up registered addresses or registered voter addresses. That can potentially mean that we're looking to collect about 750,000 to maybe even 800,000 signatures, and we'll have a 160-day window in order to do that, once the
160
petition is
days, oh
approved.
boy.
Again, we are still waiting for the approval of the petition, so our
Who
clock
approves that?
hasn't
Some kind of
started.
county council or?
Yes, it's the Elections Coordinations Unit of the LA County Registrar of Voters Office.
Now, I did want to say, I do have the name of the group that wants to keep the DA in LA, and it's, oh yeah, the criminals.
Exactly.
They like that guy.
There are chants in prison, actually, that chant for him. So people that are already convicted and, you know, behind bars, yes, they like him. That is true.
No. Now, it's expensive to recall because first you have to be very organized. You can't just have just volunteers. Sometimes you need a real solid professional team putting this together, tracking. A lot of times you'll
Verifying
pay
signatures.
young students or something to go collect the signatures, and you got to monitor them because sometimes they just get their friends to write. You know, it's got to be registered voters. It can't be messing around. It's got to be the real deal, and they're going to check them. They're really going to check them. So it gets expensive. And is there some way we can help?
Was a huge part of the reason why I am trying to make this a statewide issue, and we would love support so that these dangerous policies and so these criminals don't spread throughout the state,
Right.
they don't move into Kern County, they don't move up into here Fresno County. And yes, we would be thrilled for any support that might be available, and you can donate again on the website at recallgasconnow.com.
And you can't take signatures yet.
Can't take signatures yet, and those do have to be registered voters of Los Angeles
Right.
County. But anyone can actually circulate the petition. So if you're on vacation and you have
LA,
nothing
yeah.
better to do when you come down to the beaches of LA County, you know, feel free to pass around, you know, a petition with, you know, some other, you know, registered voters that you meet while you're down there.
Now, when it is time to take the signatures, and maybe you don't even know this yet, how will it physically be? Will they be able to sign online somehow, or are they going to have to find a form and sign their actual signature?
LA County, and actually I think usually the state of California in general require wet ink signatures. So there will be petitions that one can print and that they can sign and that they can turn in to drop off locations
Single
throughout
signature, you don't have to
the
have
county.
like 50 on a page. Maybe you could do one. And
You can do one or
print.
two. Like I say, they can print their own. However, you know, we would certainly hope and encourage if you print off a petition and you sign it, like we'll take your one
Yeah.
or two signature by all means. But, you know, make sure you knock on a neighbor's door and
get
maybe
some
pick
neighbors,
up,
yeah.
you know, ideally we'll see full petitions coming in, you know, that are completed with signatures because that'll help us to reach our total and our required number of signatures just that much faster.
Well, I guess this period is the time to get the word out. You know, why are we
Bingo.
doing this? You're not vengeful, you know?
No, not whatsoever. Like I say, we want law enforced. That's it. I mean, when you disregard the law and you make it a more dangerous county for all of us, I mean, we actually have seen homicide rates spike 200% over last year. This is not a policy that is making LA County a safer place.
Yeah, and I want to delve into that a little more. Every time we elect a Democrat governor, the next day we start the recall. Republican governor, we start the recall. Is this partisan?
This is not a partisan issue. DA Gascon ran against Jackie Lacey of the same party. Both of them are Democratic candidates that are running. Sheriff Villanueva, again, Sheriff's office is actually also a nonpartisan office, as is the DA, but reform-based Democrat. We're seeing that this is not locked down to one particular party, nor should it be. Rule of law is not a partisan issue either.
Rule of law, there you
And
go.
it should be about the fact that if there is a law that needs to be changed, then it goes to the legislature, it comes from the people,
there's a
but
path to
not
that,
from
yeah.
one individual. And let me just throw one other comment out there that gets thrown out a lot during this, and that has to do with the need for reform within our, you know, whether it's our justice system or whether it's our legal system as a whole. This does not help reform of the legal system when law is disregarded. The idea is that we enforce the law equitably, not selectively. Because
Equitably is a good word, equitably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When we have a selective enforcement of law, that's when you get discrimination. That's when you get these cases that do need to be addressed. But if that's why, Lady Justice wears a blindfold. I mean, it might be a little cliche, but it's important to note that so many times the victims of the crimes that are not receiving justice from the hands of these policies are the very same people, that are being said, oh, well, our policies are intending to help. And it doesn't work that way. That's why the law is supposed to be blind. And if you want prison reform, if you want police reform, all of those are discussions to be had, and they're important, but they don't come at the hands of disregarding rule of law.
Now, I was 2 terms in the state legislature. We made laws. That's what we did. Never like somebody says, I got an idea, I propose this law, we vote, and it's a law. It's months and months of committee hearings and listening to experts, people who knew way more than us about sociology and how the human mind works, and statistics on what happens when you make something less illegal or things like that. So it's a great process we have in America. You have the legislative branch that creates these laws, and then we don't do it right all the time, so it goes to the judicial branch and they interpret it. They throw some of our laws out sometimes, but it's through a lot of input. It's never in the dark or quietly. But the idea that one person, just one person, we're not going to do these laws anymore. It's unbelievable.
I think it's very concerning to me as well, and that's why, like I say, we want to see Gascon recalled, and we want that to we want a recall of Gascon now.
Yeah. By the way, I'm taking no position on this. I don't know Gascon, and I'm not from LA, so the other side's welcome to come on to the criminals, or whoever is on the other side. You can come on. I won't argue with you or put you down. We listen to all sides here, and you're welcome to come. Now, I asked you a million questions. I kept dragging from your point. Anything else you want to add before we're out?
I actually appreciate all of your questions, Mike. It was great. I think it allowed for all of the various points to eventually be raised, and I appreciate it very, very much. I thank you so much for having me on today. And I thank the watchers of Central Valley Talk and the folks of the Fresno County and the surrounding areas, and I do hope that they will get involved. This really is a statewide issue, even though I know you can't sign the petition, but you don't want to see these policies coming to your county next. And so I really would encourage just getting involved, with this effort, whether it's sharing on social media, whether it's picking up a phone and talking to a friend or a family member in Los Angeles County that you haven't talked to in a while, and let them know that this effort is underway, and to check out Recall Gascon Now as a place where they can get more information and be involved in making their county a safer place.
Karen Roseberry.
You've done so well too.
Karen Roseberry. And Recall Gascon Now. Go to that website, recallgasconnow.com. Look it up, research it. I Googled a couple newspaper articles right before we came on there. I was shocked by what I read. So there's no secret plot going on to remove someone from office. It's just a very public process. And you know what? If that guy thinks we should get rid of those laws, then he should stand up for that. And he's going to face the voters and let them decide. If that's what he believes, that's what he believes. So I think the people of LA may believe something different. We'll find out. This is NewsMakers with Mike Briggs. We'll be back here next Wednesday with another fascinating guest. So see you then.